In terms of subcollections, just an example provided to you in this table are some of the polls that we have, including the time periods that they cover. So it really is broad. We have a lot of historical data, but also some more current data. Most recently from the Canadian Opinion Research Archive, they've been depositing data sets from the most recent elections in the provinces. And so we have data including up until the last 3 years. And here's some more examples of some of the collections that you can find. I mentioned that really large collection of Statistics Canada Data Liberation Initiative data, including recent public use microdata coming out of Statistics Canada. We also index a lot of Borealis data sets, which is great because you can start to see that the co-location of these kinds of data sources used in academic research alongside the outputs of research that people are depositing. And you'll find that the results are really interesting and it can lend to some possibly interesting collaborations. And we have other partnered collections, including metadata coming from the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, ICPSR, in the United States, as well as metadata for master file data sets that are housed in Canadian research data centers. These are the restricted access master files. We also provide access to licensed and restricted data. Most of the data sets in our repository are open access or open for academic use, non-commercial use, but there are some restricted data sets, including data that are licensed for authorized institutional users only. You must log in to access these. This includes data such as Statistics Canada postal code conversion file, the Canadian Institute for Health Information's discharge abstract database sample, and others. And so in order to access these, you must log in with your institution, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what that page would look like. Your institutional login would appear, and you would be able to log in with your institution's username and password that you've been provided, or your single sign-on. So just quickly, recently Odesi was completely overhauled. It had a full relaunch on October 4th of last year. That included a full redesign of the front end and a new backend. We fully migrated to Borealis as our backend repository. And we have a number of user guides now available in English and French for how to use the repository, as well as videos. This is what the old platform looked like, and this is the new platform. So if you go to odesi.ca, you'll see the new platform available. This is the browse feature. So we are able to display, if you click on the top right, the browse button, you'll be able to see a list of subjects that we support in the Odesi repository. This one is business. You can also do full text searching using just the main search bar. And you can also limit to a certain date range if you're only interested in the most recent data or historical data. This is the collections search filter options. So you can drill down into the different collections and just filter for those. You can also exclude partnered collections if you're only interested in the data in Odesi. By default, when you run a search, you will receive dataset results in the page here, and these are listed with the title of the survey included, as well as a snippet of where that term appears in the metadata. By default, the system will also, if variables are indexed for that dataset, the system will run a search on the variables in that data set to display those for you. So in this case, I've searched for insurance, and it gave me some results, including matching variable results found within those surveys. You can also, on the right side navigation, facet your search to different fields, including collection, series, and as well by date, by geography, distributor, kind of data, and more. I mentioned the search for variables. So this is really popular because the data contain a lot of broad questions and variables contained within those data sets. It's really important to be able to search within the data to find that data for reuse. So in this particular example, I've searched for smoking, and the results also present to me the matching variables that contain that term. And so that's one way you can search for variables. This is all built on top of the metadata that's stored in Borealis, so you can also search for it that way. We also support frequency charts of the data from the search interface. And so when you click on a variable, you would be presented with the summary frequencies. Here's that example. I've searched for Trudeau, and I've been able to find some questions asked of respondents about their satisfaction with the federal government's performance under Justin Trudeau. And then if you click that variable, as I mentioned in the search interface, it will display for you the frequencies and the percentages as a chart. All the variable metadata that gets added to Odesi includes structured metadata for the variable labels, question text, interview instructions, universe notes, variable groups, and weights. This is pretty standard if you're familiar with survey data, but oftentimes this information does not come structured to us in a metadata format that we can use in a search database. So that's what's really driving that rich variable searching for Odesi. I mentioned the viewing of the categories of the frequencies in the chart. So you can do this for weighted and unweighted data. And I'm also going to show you quickly how to further explore and analyze this data in a tool called Data Explorer, which is part of the Borealis infrastructure. So to get to explore variables with Data Explorer, on the dataset landing pages, you would see the option to explore the variables, which would open a new tab for you. From here, you can browse variables by their groups. So we curate the data and put them into groups. Sometimes producers will group variables in their documentation, so we usually follow this procedure. You can search for a variable within the Data Explorer. If it's a very large data set with hundreds of variables, it's very easy to find. And then you can also select multiple if you are previewing them or if you want to bring them into a window altogether. These buttons on the side right, view summary statistics, view categories, view questions. This is where you can preview that data, preview the statistics and the categories and the questions that were asked. And then on the top right, you can also build your cross tabulations. So you can tabulate 2 or more variables to see the trends. You can view summary statistics this way for multiple variables that you select, and you can also subset by variable to create a download, like a custom download subset with just the variables you're interested in, or you can download the full data set. Quickly, this is the cross-tabulation window. So you can select certain variables to add to the row or to the column in your table, and it will present the outputs for you. If you'd like to download to do further analysis in another tool, the formats we support, they're pretty open. Most of our data, the original data, would be in SPSS format, so proprietary format. But you can, what the system does is it ingests that SPSS file and converts it to a more open format. So when you are conducting a subset, you would be getting a tab delimited file format back. So just to note that it's not the original data that you're subsetting. And then if you are interested in just getting the original files and you aren't using the Data Explorer tool, you can do so directly from the search interface. So if you click on View All Files, you would be presented with the agreement terms. Every data set has a license, and so you would be presented with that before you can download, and then you would be able to download the individual files. Just quickly, it's really important to cite your data that you use in your research. And so we now support DOIs for persistent citation of the data sets in the repository. You can quickly see the citation in the dataset results page, and you can easily copy those citations to put into your publications. You can also browse the collection, search the collection, and then save items to a list. So if you wanted to email this to yourself or share it with someone, you could easily create this list and then export them or email them to yourself. The Borealis repository that we're using also supports a metrics report. And so you can use this to see the usage of some of the data sets in the collection. For example, I've just pulled up the top Cora downloads for October 2023, and you can see that the most widely, the highest downloaded data set in October 2023 was the Canadian Election Study 2021. So this allows you to really flexibly look at usage and metrics in the Odesi repository, but also Borealis as a whole. And you can get these either in it's like a monthly report, or you can download a full year report into an Excel spreadsheet. I mentioned early on that you can also access the collections using APIs. So APIs are just a way for you to interact with our database holdings in using, programmatic interfaces and languages, depending on what your use case is. It's useful for things like integrating in a search platform, or if you have a custom research project that you're looking to integrate this with, it could be useful. So for example, if you wanted to run a search and retrieve data, you could do so using these APIs. And so there is a lot of documentation provided in Borealis about use of these DOIs, and all it requires really is your web browser or some kind of command line tool. And then as well, you'll need your API token, which is provided to you through the Borealis platform if you're signed up and you have an account, for anything that is like it authorized users only, but otherwise the search API is completely open. So here's an example of running a search API query for the term school. And, I couldn't think that, I'm sure there are many more examples you can use here, but the APIs are very extensive in Dataverse, and they allow for you to query not just broadly across the collection, but in certain fields, and you can compound those as well. So there's all kinds of really cool things you can do with these APIs. I did want to mention that we do have open metadata in Odesi, which is harvested by metadata aggregators, including Google Dataset Search, but also Lunaris. So we learned about Lunaris last hour, and so you can now see Odesi collections in Lunaris, and here's an example of the Canadian Gallup poll, May 1996, discoverable. So if you were to click on the access this data set, you would be able to get to that in Borealis. I wanted to highlight this for everyone. So the Odesi Market Program is the group of libraries and staff and students that curate and maintain the collections. It started around the time of the repository officially going live in 2008, and its purpose is to maintain the collections as well as through funding to hire students to mark up data, providing training opportunities and valuable service support. And so markup is a term that we use to describe creating metadata and publishing data sets in Odesi. And we have a number of partners who are participating, including the OCO contributions, as well as Scholarship Portal staff. And this year we have participants from McMaster University, University of Toronto, and Queen's University maintaining the collections. Just quickly, some updates on what we've loaded recently. We've loaded the census 2021 individuals pump file. We have a new Canadian income survey for 2020, Canadian housing survey 2021. So lots of really great data for you to go and search and explore. I did want to highlight as well our new metadata best practices guide. So as of the migration to Borealis last year, we did revamp our metadata best practices to be in alignment with Dataverse. And so you can take a look at the guides which were published to Zenodo late last year, and the French became available just this week. So if you are interested in learning more about our best practices, you can do so. Here's just an example of what this document looks like. So we spend a lot of time as librarians and in the library obsessing over metadata. And so of course, this document goes into a lot of detail about how to structure a title, how to structure a subtitle, and so on. And this goes into more detail for every section of the metadata, including variables. I did want to briefly mention that we are continuously improving the tools that we use in Odesi. An example of this is the ongoing development of integration between the data curation tool, which is what we use to curate the variable metadata and publish to Odesi, and the data explorer tool, which is what users see when they're viewing and exploring data in Odesi. And so this will become a single application that's managed in the back end for permissions. And some of the features that we're working on in Data Explorer are improved cross tabulations, including a new variable selection window to add to the table, new options for display of row and column percentages in the table, and weighted results. Currently, Data Explorer only shows you unweighted data. And so here's a preview of that work, including the new updated interface. And then I just wanted to highlight some more resources for you. We are trying to blog more. Seems like more people are interested in this. So we have a Love Data Week blog post available. You can always contact your institutional representative to get more support with using Odesi, to make requests, to contact us about issues. So please use the contacts button on the main landing page to get in touch with your local representatives or to contact us directly. We have a user guide available in English and French. We also have a guide to the public opinion polls if you're interested in checking that out. We have a number of community contributed guides, including data on racialized populations in Canada, available in English and French. And as I mentioned, the Odesi Best Practices Guide available now, and the Odesi Deposit Guide. So please get in touch with us or anyone at your institution to learn more.